911, what's your emergency?
I had to kill a man. He came in my house and tried to, you know. So I thought I would let you know.
All right, we are back on Play It Forward, and today we have Alison Star Locke, filmmaker, writer, director. We're going to be talking about Pickup Time, and I look forward to doing that. Before we start, Allison, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. I think your film is very pertinent to anyone who has children, and even those of us who do not have children. It still relates. Before we talk about the film, can you introduce yourself a little bit and your background?
Yeah, sure. I am a writer, director, occasional producer. I went to film school at USC, and then I became a reality TV story producer for a lot of years. And then I stayed home with my daughter for a lot of years. And then a couple years ago, I just made my first feature film. It's called The Apology, which you can watch on Hulu, Shudder, AMC Plus, Blu-ray, etc. And then lately, I've been putting out a short film that I made called Pickup Time, and that's very much based on my experiences as a very type A, trying so hard mother.
I bet. I bet. I've got a 5-year-old, so I know the drill, and thank you for sharing your experience. It sounds like you've got quite a great range of, the well-grounded education, theoretical knowledge, the application, the industry experience in reality TV, and now coming back full circle into your own creative interest and efforts. So you've definitely have a good experience in the whole world of from DIY to commercial filmmaking. And from that perspective, we'll dive right into the three questions of Play It Forward. Pickup Time is a film. It's about parenting. Um, I like to set it up for those of us who have not watched the film yet. Can you briefly, or not briefly, however much time you need, explain what it's about?
Well, first off, that's the dreamiest way to put it because I think most filmmakers, I was just talking to a writer friend last night about something that I was working on, and I said, writers hate the thing we fear the most is brevity.
Cool.
A chance you get to just talk and talk. But this is a 4-minute film, so a little less that I need to get into. But it's a very short, and it's something that I made with friends that I shot in front of my house. And it's about a stay-at-home mom who it's a very subtle detail in the film, but has a special needs child, and she's racing home to drop off her groceries before she goes and picks up the kid from school, and she feels an enormous amount of pressure to get that right because the kid really does not, her daughter cannot handle when something is different. So changes expectations. But then the mother ends up facing something quite unexpected herself in the process of trying to do these simple things.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that subtle detail because I did miss that. And I'm thinking that was where was that? Where did you drop that little
It's
plot
the
point?
tiniest thing she says, oh, she has speech therapy.
Okay. All
It's
right.
a
I caught
tiny thing. I
that,
don't
but
expect anyone else to catch that.
I no, I caught
Those
that.
little
But that
pieces. And
seems so like everybody has some special thing
true,
nowadays. So
true. That's very
it
true.
went over my head in terms of, oh, that's like normal.
Isn't
But
that great though, that that is becoming more normalized? Even in the 10 years since my daughter was diagnosed, she has autism.
uh,
It's like how many more people, I could go on a whole like side thing
yeah,
about how
yeah,
wonderful it is that assessments are becoming more normalized and therapy is becoming more normalized and
yeah,
early intervention. And I love that. So most of
yeah.
my work ends up having some little
Mm,
droplet, if not a full on, that's the story
yeah,
in that. So yeah.
yeah. No, the destigmatization of that
Lovely.
is a good thing. Well, the reason that's happening, that's another topic for a show, but it's concerning. That said, um, the all of our films typically come from our life experience, and as you said, you've got a kid. How old's your daughter?
She's 13 now.
13 now. So you've been doing it for a while, and I
Oh.
think way I read into the film is certainly, one of the things that, the mom kind of pulls into the carport garage, or not garage, the driveway, and she's, goes in the trunk and she's got two laundry baskets that are both labeled, needs to be refrigerated now, can't wait. And so she rushes in to throw something in the refrigerator. This guy comes down the street. He's got tattoos, he's got sunglasses, he goes into her house. There's violent sounds being heard. She comes out, she's totally engorged in blood, and she's got to call 911 and say, hey, come take care of this mess. I got to go pick up my daughter. So
Yeah.
that's, the film. And with that said, there's such an intense pressure of getting it right as a mother. You've mentioned that already, being perfect. Where in your life experience did your desire to want to make this film come from? That kernel.
Oh, I think it was from doing basically exactly this minus the home invader. I just thought, my imagination, I tend to focus on horror or related genres. And so my imagination is quite dark. So I literally was just one day bringing in the groceries and in a rush and thought, this is very stupid that I'm leaving my door open, leaving my trunk open. What if somebody just walked in? And so that's where it started.
Okay. But okay, so a lot of, storytelling comes with a what if, and that what if is that
Yeah.
generative thing. But there's the passion and the feeling that drives it. There's something that I believe that you're looking to answer with that what if.
Yes.
And that context of, like, to me, the person who wrote the story is putting themselves under a tremendous amount of expectations. They have this perfectionist sensibility. And do
Yes.
you have that?
Yes, I
Why
do.
were you driving yourself crazy? What was going on in your life? How do you relate to your story?
I think yes, I'm realizing more and more lately that yes, I am a perfectionist. And I think because I am such a perfectionist, I didn't think I was a perfectionist.
Is that right? How does that work?
So it's kind of that thing where it's like, because if you think there's always more you could do, you think you're not already doing that. You're not
Oh, you're
already
not
that
perfect.
perfectionist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's just like a whole fun screw your brain
Right.
up thing. Yeah, which I've done a lot of work on and now I'm much better, as that saying
That's
goes,
great.
right? But it was, I think, because the pressure also of being a parent in general, and then especially when your kid has a disability and they're in various interventions, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of advocacy and it's a lot of patience. My kiddo had a lot of behavior issues when she was younger, and it's really hard to stay calm and on top of things and then still trying to write and still trying to do this other part of myself. And so it made it very difficult to not I felt like my options were basically aiming for perfection or giving up. It felt like that
Mm.
was the intensity of the feeling at the time. And yeah, so that was just something that I was always kind of wrestling with. And so I thought, well, there's danger in that. And that's something that I've been writing about a lot in my scripts is there's a lot of danger in perfectionism and there's a lot of danger in what parents, but especially mothers, do to ourselves in terms of like what we're supposed to be doing because we feel, especially these days when it just feels like there's dwindling resources and dwindling attention to keeping our kids safe and educated and all of these things that it feels like it's on me, which is not rational, but the feeling is still very there and very potent. And so then I've also been playing with a lot of tonal shifts in my features that I'm writing now. And so I wanted to do something that took the intensity of that feeling and then really shifted gears in terms of being funny and being because I feel like that's my coping mechanism. Certainly, I think most people's is that when something feels like so much pressure that you have to start cracking the funeral kind of jokes, like you
Yep.
just do that. And so I really wanted to play with that. I also had made this feature that I'm very proud of, but it was an intense learning curve, which I knew it would be. It was my first one, and it had gone from me working with tiny friend crews like in my house or my friend's house to a full SAG-AFTRA IATSE situation. So it was quite the big shift. So it was kind of nice to be like, I just want to, and it was during the strike, so we couldn't make anything bigger, because of course, solidarity. So it was like we could make a micro budget thing that would kind of fill our souls a little bit while we were waiting for things to
That's
get
awesome.
settled.
I love
Yeah.
a lot of what you said. I think starting with I forgot. I did, but it'll come back to me. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Um, you mentioned the danger, and before you mentioned danger, and this is what I really loved, is that you expressed you either have to be perfect at it or you
Oh,
give up.
yeah.
And what is inspirational in that statement, as for a human being to say, is that you didn't give up. You're a warrior, you're a fighter, you're gonna do it, you're gonna rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Um, On the other hand, of course, you realize, I mean, anybody who's got a kid knows that the demands are ultra high. We're in societal structures that are difficult and not necessarily accommodating to group parenting, and that's not really
Yeah.
going on. And it's challenging. There's all this stuff and it's really, really time consuming, really effort consuming. Your kid, special needs or not, especially special needs, is demanding 100% of your attention, especially those first 4 or 5 years where
Yeah. You're
toddlerhood
still
and
really in it there. Yeah.
oh my God, it's messy. And if you're not prepared, which most of us are not prepared, I never knew the reality that I'd be facing. It is excruciating, and you're working from sun up to sundown so that your house is not a shithole and your kid is got a lunch for the next day.
Yeah.
Um, and trying to keep your own life together. So, this when you see that person who's so wound up and trying to show up on all these fronts for themselves, for the kids first, and then do the best they can, make it quality experience for your kid as well.
Yeah.
Um, it is dangerous. It is
It
dangerous
is.
if you are in a position where you're doing more than you can sustain. So I think with that as a milieu of what we're discussing, how do you keep yourself safe?
It's an excellent question. I mean, I think uh for me it was what really helped was were two things, which is like remembering to put yourself out there in terms of finding your community. So finding I started meeting a lot more horror filmmakers, a lot more DIY filmmakers, a lot more like low budget. So basically people that I could really intimately relate to in that way. I also met along the way a lot of other special needs families. So it was kind of both of those things were sort of being met. And then practically speaking, I got I got a paper planner, like an old school planner, and just started really time blocking. I don't do
Mhm.
it all the time, but I do it most of the time. And that really helped in terms of shifting my brain to like, you are accomplishing a lot of things. But the thing is that time is still finite. It is not a flat circle. Like True Detective said. So it's like you do have to just go, as much as I am a fiercely ambitious person in every aspect of my life to my poor husband's exhaustion, it is definitely something that you have to go, okay, well, how much can I do today? And it really helped me see like, oh, I am doing so much. And it also helps you look at the balance. You go, okay, but have I set up a thing from, do I have a little mommy daughter date with my kid? Do I have a play date scheduled for her? Do I have any generals this week? Do I have, you know what I mean? Like, am I doing enough writing sessions? Am I writing only in isolation in my home, or am I writing with my village? Those sorts of things.
I get that, and I get the understanding of, the need to build community and to grow and learn with other people and to feel like you're
Right.
not alone and you can share this experience in a way and reflect and have that. And what else you said is the highly ambitious person. And I think that is a danger, right? There's a
Yeah, it can
danger
be. Yeah.
to that. And it can be a motivator, it can be a great accomplishment, it can be that. But if we look at your life in the context of the film and look at the character of the film, we see no time that she's being. She's not,
Yeah.
there isn't a place for that. She's just
Yeah.
doing, 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 doing. And so in our lives where we're all trying to balance whether, the thing in my life where ambition is a factor is why am I ambitious? What
Mm,
what is
of course.
driving the ambition?
Yeah.
And if it's recognition, the way I relate to myself, if it's recognition, that's like, That's red flag to me.
That's the scary stuff for sure. I think it's definitely the most important thing is to feel like you are expressing yourself, you are doing your part to be part of the community of examining the human condition, all of those true, pure things about being an artist of any kind. That's the good stuff. Like
Hmm.
that's why it's like anytime you're talking process, anytime you're actually working on things. I also just like volunteer AD on my friends' films pretty often, just to be on more sets, to be around all of this more, because that's what I really love. It's really nice to have conversations with, very, very smart people like yourself. They were putting all of our work out in the world, and it's really nice to, have people send me nice messages about my film. Those are great. Of course they are. But that if that's the food you're looking for, that's not going to fill you.
Yeah.
It's really got to be the process and the work of it. And I think the more you get to know folks who have been doing it for longer, and especially that have made things that have really stood the test of time, something really beautiful work, they usually are not that interested in that other part of it. They are about the process and what are you working on and what are you thinking about and what are you obsessed with? What are you fascinated by? What do you want to work through? Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely also one of those filmmakers that does tend to think that I wouldn't go so far as calling filmmaking therapy, but I think in terms of like, I think we have a responsibility as artists to let ourselves, as Judith Weston said, and I'm going to paraphrase badly, follow our obsessions, our fascinations, that it's our responsibility to do that, and whatever that is, and not feel embarrassed about it, because some of the stuff that I write about is so personal that it is like, whoo, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
sharing this with the world, but you have to because honesty is everything.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying it. Thank you for bringing the conversation into the realm of art as filmmakers are artists. I think it's so easy
Absolutely.
to lose sight of that, as because it's such a industry and there is so much,
Sure.
you know, uh,
Pressure and like, are you following things? I think the biggest advice that I got really early on that helped a lot was just don't try to follow a trend because by the time you've done the thing, the trend's over anyway.
sure.
And also, it just feels gross,
Yeah.
Just make something that you give a shit about, that
Yeah.
really is like about you as
Yeah.
a person and what
Truth.
you have to, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Tell the truth, and try to be as specific about that truth as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Because I do believe the specificity is universality kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, You know, what else did you say that was important that I want to underscore or punctuate? Um, Therapy. The therapy aspect. You said you don't want to say filmmaking's therapy, and I'll say it is therapy. It is
yeah.
certainly therapeutic. Um,
Yes, I
yeah,
think that's the distinction I think I mean. Yes. Exactly.
and I've done a lot of these shows now to my own surprise, like over 100 filmmakers, I've spoken to, thank you, and for whatever that's worth, but quality, not quantity. But I appreciate, yeah, you're kind of applauding my longevity and continuing this,
Yes, I
and
mean, because that's so much of it too, is just continuing to
yeah,
be in things, to be
yeah,
doing it.
yeah, keep doing it, keep showing up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been blessed and lucky to be able to do that, and the every filmmaker I've spoken to, there is some aspect of themselves in the work that they're processing. They're processing a question about themselves that they don't
Yes.
have an answer to.
Yes.
And there's always like, and in your film, it's kind of like, how do I survive this is what the woman did. She survived
Yes.
and she overcame her this representation of this force that was trying to overcome her, and she's still continuing to do it, but she hasn't processed it, right?
Yes.
She doesn't have the time to process what just happened to her because
Yes.
she's on to the next thing.
Yes.
And how do you relate to survival and what it is that you were trying to process through this particular micro short?
Yeah, well, it's funny when we're talking, the whole process of making a film, people rarely talk about that there's this extra process, extra step of the process, which is really putting the film out there and talking about it, it kind of gives it another life for obviously it's the first life for the audience, but it's another life for us, because I'm thinking, gosh, I never really realized how much the end is still a horror film, that it's like this poor woman doesn't think she can just have someone else handle that part. I can't just somebody else, like, just call the school. The 911 operator is not wrong. Just that the 911 operator tells, for those who haven't seen the film yet, tells her, can't you call? No, you need to call your daughter's school and they will, take care of your
Right.
daughter. And
Right.
because obviously you've just been through an awful trauma. And she's like, no, it's me. And it's like, woman, you're going to show up to pick your kid up covered in blood. Like, this is not a good thing. Your kid is going to see this on you. And that's something that I think I always struggled to remember. And now I feel like I'm a lot better at is that our children are sponges. And you may not be showing up to pick them up with blood all over you, but they can see your stress. They can see your worry. They can see, all of that stuff. And so it's
Yeah.
like trying to think about um, how to do that. But I very often my favorite horror films are survival horror films. I think I really relate, or war films and stuff. I had a crazy, not like, see, we always like that, sort of grade on a curve for things that we don't need to. But I had kind of a crazy childhood, and I had, and then all the stuff with my daughter. There's just been a lot of things that have felt like I had to emotionally survive them. Luckily, I have not been, physically attacked or anything like that. But that I relate to those stories so much because I think sometimes, too often, life can feel a bit like, okay, I'm climbing out of the cave now. I've survived the monster then and so I think that's really fascinating to talk about things in that sort of very primal level, and that again kind of speaks to a universal experience that I think hopefully folks don't feel too intensely, but I
Yeah.
think all of us feel a little bit like we've crossed gauntlets to get to wherever we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do we take care of ourselves after surviving a trauma?
Yeah, I think the big thing, the various things that have worked for me, because obviously you always have to say that as opposed to saying this is the thing that
Sure.
will work, you
Yeah.
know. Is again other people, leaning into my daughter instead of away from her, building our relationship as it is, which is a beautiful, wonderful relationship. She's a little warrior. I call her my warrior princess because she has done all this therapy and she's still so sunny and so sweet and so pure about her like enthusiasm for things. And so I think leaning into other people is the biggest way and being honest about your feelings. Don't feel like you have to be like, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. You're not fine, and that's okay. And the people in your life shouldn't have an issue with that. And I find that when I am honest with people, which is hopefully most of the time, if not all of the time, then it gives them a chance to feel like, oh, I'm with a person who's being vulnerable. I can do that too. And then we have a chance to kind of process it and also to not stay in the sadness of it too much. And not like you're not allowed, not toxic positivity, but just in terms of going, okay, well, that was terrible and we got to validate the hell out of that. But what can we learn from it and where can we go? What do we want, to live the life that's in our head as opposed to just reacting to things, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense, Allison. Thank you for that. And your daughter has you as her foundation to be that sunny self. And I know
Yeah.
you're, very committed to that
Yeah, can you
wholeheartedly.
tell?
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. And thank you for sharing all your experience with us. Last question I'll play forward is, since making this short pickup time, how have you personally changed?
Oh gosh, it did a substantial thing for me, which was that I remembered that it to put it simply, my confidence increased substantially. I felt like, okay, I've made a feature, I've made another short. I had made many, many shorts before this, before the apology. And I had worked on so many friends' shorts and that sort of thing was always going on. But there was something about making it in my house with my friends, my daughter's on set. My husband's on set. We're all just doing it. Like my best friend made all the food, you know, that kind of stuff. It was such a pure experience that there was something about realizing, oh, I'm working on this tonal thing I want to work on, and I'm working in this exact arena story-wise that I like to work in, that made me feel like that really validated what I wanted to explore as a filmmaker. And so I have felt since then a lot more empowered in terms of what I'm writing to hopefully make very soon for my second feature. So that's
Awesome.
very, very wonderful. And it's really, I just feel so lucky to have this amazing community of filmmakers that we just back each other up in all kinds of ways. It's really
It's very cool.
that's the thing.
I love how, you were able to do it yourself. You didn't need to go fundraise, on this, that, or the other. Just
Lots
make
and
it
lots of
very,
favors.
yeah, and do it with people that you enjoy working with and do it on with all the resources you have available to you. And,
Absolutely. Yeah.
make it creative and use those, limitations of resources to make it that much more compelling and
Yeah.
creative.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I got very lucky. I think that I also felt a little like embarrassed about asking people to work for free after making this IATSE film, you know, and everybody had been like, "No, we're all doing things for each other for free, and you've been helping us on all of these," you know, like they were just
Yeah.
like, "No, this is there's
Yep.
different levels of what you're doing, but you can absolutely take out a piece of paper and start breaking your script down and just start asking friends for things, and you just it's one step at a time, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's okay.
It's okay, you can do it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alison Star Locke, filmmaker, writer, director. Pickup Time, The Apology. We're going to share that with everyone. You were
Thank
nominated by Fina Sanchez. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure. Bye,
Thank you so much for
Allison.
having me, 𝘗𝘪𝘤. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. All right. Till next time, everybody, on Play Forward, we're out.